Pokemon's a massive franchise, and it's no surprise that they've dipped their toes in all sorts of media, games, TCG, shows, and movies. And of course, the topic of today's video, manga. You may already know all of this since I say the same thing pretty much every video, but let's put your brains to the test as we're going to be talking about every single Pokemon manga that exists. And I mean every single one. If you know at least 15 of the mangas here, then I've got to give you respect as a mega fan. So without further ado, let's get on to our first category of manga. For our first section of manga, we're gonna have the volume manga. These are what I consider the main Pokemon manga. They have more than one chapter and have at least one volume. These mangas all adapt the mainline games in some way or form, even if not super accurately. So let's get started. Of course, if we're gonna talk about every manga, we should talk about the first one first. And that's this masterpiece? Yeah, this thing isn't known for being the most well-written and entertaining manga. Instead, it's a gag manga, focused on the journey of Red and his talking Clefairy. If you've heard of this manga before, you'll know it's notorious for its crude and childish humor, as well as its bizarre early stage Pokemon lore, such as these weird creatures that we never see again, and Pokemon being able to evolve and then de-evolve. And since we've talked about this manga, it makes sense to talk about its sequels next. So, after traveling Kanto and Johto, Red, Pikachu and Clefairy's journey continues in Hoenn, where we get to see more of the same stuff. Rinse and repeat, this time with Sinnoh. Red heads back to Johto, same stuff as before. Surprise surprise, same stuff once again, this time Unova. I'm not even gonna explain because you already know what I'm gonna say. Honestly, the most impressive thing about this manga is the fact that it's still going. Okay, finally something different. After doing the same format for years on end, the Pokémon Manga series changed it up. And never mind, it's the same thing, just in Gala and a different name. This thing is like 4 pages by the way, and if you hate yourself, you can go read it on the Korokoro website. Thankfully though, we're finally done with this manga, and we can move on to something else. It's no surprise to say that I don't really need to explain this one to you, but for consistency's sake, the manga follows the adventures of the Pokédex holders, and their journeys through their respective regions. I've got more than enough videos on this manga, so let's just move on to the next. Pokemon Zensho is another manga I've actually covered on the channel before, being a pretty faithful adaptation of the first game, and with all that early Pokemon goodness, like One-Horde Charizard and whatnot. If you get the chance to read it, then I suggest you do. It's only 10 chapters and it's pretty wholesome. Now we're getting into the lesser known manga territory, but that doesn't mean the quality is going to be dropping, as this 23 chapter manga follows the adventure of, you guessed it, Gold, as he travels through the Johto regions, taking on the same kind of tasks you do in the games, such as fighting Faulkner and his iconic Pokemon Articuno. Gold isn't alone though, as he also travels with Whitney for a bit before she gets replaced by Chris, and we can't forget about his rival, Black. Yeah, not Silver, but Black. The manga itself isn't bad at all, and has some entertaining characters, comedy, and of course battles. However, its ending is very abrupt, with Gold and his gang fighting against a black Tyranitar in Cyanwood City, which is kind of random. One more thing I want to mention though is that this manga's creator is actually the creator of the legendary beast, Muneno Saito. So yeah, that's pretty cool. For this manga, the name's a pretty dead giveaway of what it's going to be about. We follow Enter, a young boy who takes up the role as an apprentice in the Battle Frontier. After being invited by Scott, he meets a boy called Rold, who's meant to represent the player character, Brendan, and he acts as Enter's mentor, seeing as he's already the champion with a high level team. The manga's only 6 chapters long, but surprisingly covers a lot of the Battle Frontier, with some intense looking battles and character development for Enter and his team. Its art screams 2000s manga, and if you guys want me to, I can easily make a full video on it. Its creator, Shikatsu Ihara, also will be making more appearances later in the video. And by later, I mean literally right now. Not to be confused with Pokemon Adventures Diamond and Pearl, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl Adventure is a manga that some of you may have heard of before, as it's one of the mangas on this list to be translated by Viz. We follow the quest of Haretta, who's trying to find Dialga, and this manga's pretty stuffed with content. It's 100% going to be getting its own video down the line, so to keep things simple, we see a lot of the Sinnoh region, its character and Pokemon, so that's always a good job in a Pokemon manga. Created by Ryu Matsushima, Joe's Big Adventure follows the story of Joe, a trainer who travels across the Heart Gold and Soul Silver plot of Kanto and Johto. The art's super cool in my opinion, and the story is straight action, starting immediately at the fight with Faulkner. If I'm being honest, it's your usual shonen trash, where the power of friendship is enough to overcome any obstacle, but that's what we love about it. Also, I find it funny that Joe's the type of trainer to just say one Pokemon and we ball, as this guy makes it all the way to red with Justice for Alligator. Our first manga in the Black and White series of games. The manga's only 8 chapters long and serves kind of like a player guide, covering the mechanics in the games. I only managed to find the first chapter, where the main character Monta learns about catching Pokemon when 2 of them are in front of you. I don't really have much more to say about it other than its creator went on to draw the Fortnite manga, so I guess there's that. Our second Black and White manga. Whilst only having 5 chapters, it does its best to tell the tale of Reshiram and Zekrom, with its main character Shin meeting N and both of them battling it out at the end with their respective dragons, but in the process, skipping pretty much all the characters in the whole region. What's interesting about this manga though is the next one after it. Whilst not confirmed, this manga is most likely a sequel to Heroes of Fire and Thunder, with it having the same creator as well as similar titling sense. Shin does appear in this manga, however he has a different name, being Hero, so maybe it's not a sequel. Either way, this story, like the first, barely follows the plot of the game, instead having its main character Arata fight against Team Plasma's scientist Dr. Zeno, rather than Chorus. I never managed to find a way to read it, so you're gonna have to find a summary to it and some other mangas linked below. Now we have a really odd entry. Good Partners follows Takuro and Mashiro, 2 completely original characters and their journey in Unova. Instead of following your typical game-based or wanna be the best storylines, this manga focuses more on the relationships between humans and Pokemon. For example, there's a chapter where a Tirtuga is defossilized and begins panicking since it's in a new time and all alone, so the main characters have to help it out. And honestly, it's pretty good stuff. When looking at the creator's other mangas, you can see why they went for this approach. Escaping out of Gen 5, we now have a Generation 6 manga, but not for X and Y, instead for the ORAS games. This manga follows twin brothers, Omega and Alpha, and their quest to catch Kyogre and Groudon. It's 5 chapters long, and sadly, I don't have most of the info on it. What's cool about this manga though is the twin brothers. Their teams mirror each other, and not only that, their designs both take inspiration from Brendan's designs, making for some unique looking protagonists. Not to be confused with the anime of a similar name. This is our last mainline game manga adaptation. It's only 2 volumes long, and we follow Akira and his special Rockruff that can evolve and then de-evolve thanks to a special stone on its neck. It's been officially translated by Viz, so if you want to check it out, you can just buy it on Amazon. I personally haven't read it, so I can't give much of an opinion, but based on what the Reddit have said, it's pretty basic level stuff. Nothing extremely good, but nothing extremely bad either. Now it's time we get onto the one-shots and promotional mangas. These consist of mangas that are only 1 chapter and serve as a way of promoting either an entire Pokemon game or a specific event in the game. They're usually nothing groundbreaking, but because it's only 1 chapter, they can sometimes have some really nice artwork. So let's get into our first one. I wasn't really able to find anything about this manga other than some listings to buy it from Japan, which I wasn't gonna do. Fortunately though, Bulbapedia is here to carry us as usual. The whole purpose of this manga's promotion. It pretty much mirrors the game's 1-to-1, with the main character Ruby following the game's journey all the way up to Petalburg Woods. Nothing too special to say about it other than its creator Suigun Ochi, which I've definitely pronounced wrong. We'll be making a couple more appearances in this video later, and I'm probably going to be pronouncing his name different every single time I say it. Keeping up the Hoenn promotional manga trend, we've got this manga, which is exactly as the title suggests, a walkthrough manga designed to teach players about the new mechanics of the Ruby and Sapphire games. Fortunately, I managed to find some images of this manga, and as you can see, it was fully coloured and even gave the players some info on Jirachi. Pretty cool, but more of a guidebook than a manga. The story follows Kenta, a Lucas counterpart, as he goes through the game's tutorial section of getting your first Pokemon. Once again, nothing too special to know, other than its creator, Yoshikazu Himeno, does a pretty solid job at turning Sugimori's art style into a manga format. If you want to give this a read, Espresso Scans have made a translation on a website that I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but you can see the logo. Another promo manga for Sinnoh, but this time entirely on the Regigigas in Snowpoint Temple. The trio of Kaito, Yuki, and Kento, counterparts for Lucas, Dawn, and Barry, head to the temple each with their own Regis, in hopes of awakening and catching Regigigas. Its art honestly really has no reason to be this good, as it has dynamic shots with beautiful shading and paneling that reminds me of Dragon Ball Z of all things. And luckily it's another translated manga, so I definitely recommend giving it a read just for the sake of it. After all, it's 1 chapter. Ihara returns once again, this time for a promo manga of Heart Gold and Soul Silver. specifically though the Pokeathlon. Main character Takashi takes part in the Pokeathlon aided by his trusty team. It's your typical dumb underdog main character beats the arrogant experienced trainer story. And yeah, that's all I have to say. If you want to read it, you know where to go. This is probably the most simple manga you're gonna find, as we follow a boy called Soul who learns to catch Pokemon from Lyra. And that's pretty much it. It's got your simple gags and the art's not bad at all. And if you want to read it, once again, you know where to go. For the Black and White game's one and only one-shot, we have a story focused around the events of Dragon Spiral Tower, with N claiming Zekrom as his own, and telling the main character Toya to challenge him once he awakens Reshiram. Nothing special really. And on a more recent note, we have our last mainline game one-shot for the Let's Go games, featuring brothers Hajime and Satoru. Rather than being set in a Pokemon world, these two just straight up play the Let's Go games. This one's really for the younger audiences, but its creator, Kemon Kawamoto, has a really pretty art style, and it won't be the only time he appears in this video. 10 pages long, Machamp Evolution Line Antics for the Machamp Gym website. If you don't know what the Machamp Gym is, then you gotta wise up on your Pokemon knowledge, that's all I'ma say. Anyway, this is too weird for me, so on to the next. I really couldn't find much info on this manga, but fortunately, someone made a review. From what I understand, the manga's about some kids who want to catch Mew, but just like in real life, you can only get this Mew from a code. Other than that, once again, nothing special. With both the mainline games and the one-shots covered, it's time we move on to the spin-off mangas. As the name explains, these are the mangas that cover the content from the spin-offs, so there's going to be a mix of volumes and one-shots. Starting us off, we have... This manga is based on the Pokemon Colosseum games. It's 3 chapters long and follows the adventures of Leo and Rui as they fight against Cypher's admins. I tried to find and read as much as I could, but the last page has Leo getting hit by a rock and fainting mid-battle. So unless someone has the rest of the pages, I guess Leo just dies. Jokes aside, this manga was also created by Suiga Nuichi, just like the Korokoro Ruby and Sapphire. Yeah, you read right. This is actually a different manga by the same guy on the same game, with the only difference being the magazine it ran in. Why they did this, I have zero clue. It's once again 3 chapters and follows the same kind of plot. The only difference being, I managed to find the ending for this one. Mystery Dungeon finally makes an appearance, and it's with Ginji's rescue team. This manga is also one of the few to be translated by Viz. The plot follows Ginji, a human boy turned into a Torchic, as he tries to get back to being a human, whilst helping out his Mudkip partner, who wants to gain the courage to make a strong rescue team. It's only 6 chapters, and speed runs through the first Mystery Dungeon game's story. It's created by Makoto Mizubuchi, who will be appearing literally in the next entry. For our next Mystery Dungeon manga, we have one based on the Explorers of Darkness and Time games. And you can tell it's pretty much an exact copy of Genji's, with its main character Hono being a hot-headed fire-type starter, accompanied by their cowardly water-type starter friend. It's once again 6 chapters long, and once again speed runs through the story. It does have an interesting plot twist though, with Hono actually being Groval's former human partner, who went missing. Groval and Celebi also sacrifice himself, and yeah, they don't come back. Another difference between the two though is unlike Genji, Hono chooses to stay in the Pokemon world. Now, this one's a special manga, not because it's written well or anything, but because it was made by Ken Sugimori himself. It's fully coloured and covers the first part of the games, just kind of like a demo in a way. Other than that, it's got nothing special about it. For our last Mystery Dungeon manga, we have one for Super Mystery Dungeon. Since the manga was made for Korokoro Magazine, the cast of Riolu, Froki, and Archon take on the exclusive Korokoro Pass dungeon. What's neat about this though, is that the dungeon actually appears in the game under the same name, at least for the Japanese. For the West, it's called the Rolling Pass. Now it's time for the mangas on the Rangers game, and first up is this one. If you're a frequent viewer of the channel, you'll know I already made a video on this manga before, but to summarize, it's created by the same team as Pokemon Adventures, and takes place in the same universe. Rangers Kazuki and Hinata are tasked with a mission of fighting the Go Rock Quads and helping out with Deoxys. I'm super biased as I like Pokemon Adventures, but it's a very fun read, and I'll likely do an updated video on it, as well as its sequel manga. And speaking of which, as the name suggests, this manga is based on the Shadows of Almia Ranger games, and follows Rangers Hajime and Hitomi, and their mission to help out a Darkrai. Once again, a fun read. Heading back to the OG Ranger games, we have Mobilized Pokemon Ranger, which follows the quest of Daichi, and that's all I managed to find out. Other than a small demo chapter of Daichi helping some kids, I've got no info on this manga. I know it's 13 chapters, so it must have tried really hard to make a solid adaptation, or maybe even an original story, but I guess we'll never know. Another manga for the first game of Rangers, and sadly it's a repeat of Mobilize. If you're keeping focus, you'll be able to tell by the art style that this was also created by Ihara, and it's the last Pokemon manga he made. But it's not going to be the last time he appears in the video, since I'm not going chronologically. Also, don't misunderstand, even though he's not working on Pokemon mangas now, he still loves his previous work, as you can see by his Twitter. With Rangers out of the way, we now move on to Pokemon Batrio. You probably have no idea what a Batrio is, and before this video, I was pretty much the same. So, Batrio is based on the Pokemon arcade games by the same name. You fight in a team of 3, hence the trio part, and use special parks for each Pokemon. The story follows Ryu Tendo, who wants to become a Batrio master, and with a team of Pokemon like this, I'm sure he can. Arcades are pretty popular in Japan, so this thing's 2 whole volumes, and it's not going to be the only arcade-based manga. This manga is based on the sequel system of Batrio, named Pokemon Treta. It also focuses on 3v3 battles, but this time, players can find Pokemon in-game and catch them. Only a few more spin-offs to go and we've still got more arcade manga. This time, the Pokemon Mesostar system. If you're a massive fan of the anime and used to watch the episodes live streamed from Japan, you may have heard of this from the adverts. Mesostar is pretty much the same as Treta, but now you use tags. It's 16 chapters long, and I consider it one of the more modern era mangas, and it's made by the same guy who made the Let's Go one-shots, so art style wise it's pretty clean. Just not very Pokemon in design. But I guess that just comes with the more modern aesthetic. And for our last arcade manga, we have another by the same guy. This one's based on the Pokemon Friender arcade, which is once again more of the same stuff. This manga is actually still ongoing, but like the other arcade mangas, it's very targeted towards kids. Its main character Render Tomida is even an elementary school student and learns a game from a superhero aptly named Frienderman. So the whole thing is pretty much self-explanatory. Next on the list, we have a manga based on Pokemon Conquest, a game I've never played, so I can't really explain things too well. From what I've read of this manga, it seems to be based on the bond of characters in Conquest, as well as the Pokemon, kind of just like good partners. You can also find this one on the website. It's fully colored, and its creator, Nanatsumu Launch, although pretty unknown, really has a great art style that fits the vibe of Conquest, and for that alone, I highly suggest you give it a read. Yeah, so apparently anything can get mangas nowadays, as we have one on Pokemon Cafe Remix. As usual, I don't have much information other than to say that it's somehow still going. The target audience is for young girls, not only for the art style, but for the fact that it's in Puchigumi magazine. Now, the most surprising thing about this manga is it's actually a sequel to another manga, called Pokémonster Pikavui's Soothing Days, which has nothing to do with Cafe Remix, but like pretty much everything in this video, we're gonna talk about it later. And for our last spin-off manga, we have one on Pokemon Unite. I'm curious if you still play this game. If you do, let me know in the comments. This manga's only 4 chapters as far as I can see, but was planned to have a 5th one. It's also free to read on the Unite website, which is always a plus. Each chapter covers a different thing in Unite, with chapter 1 being on Professor Forrest's backstory, chapter 2 being on the idea of Hollowware, chapter 3 being on a father and daughter spending time on the island, and chapter 4 being on Forrest and Irby searching for an Eos energy spot. If you have no idea what I just said, just know you're not alone, because I have no idea what I just said myself. They're all super short, so it doesn't hurt to read them if you're bored or if you like the Unite games. Last thing I want to mention though is its creator, Hitoshi Ariga, who's done a lot of fan favorite Pokemon designs, such as the Aegislash line, Corviknight line, and straight up Ogerpon. But not only the Pokemon designs, he's also the guy behind a lot of official artworks, such as the Kota Bikuya RFX-J figurines. If you're still watching the video, nice work, we're pretty much halfway there. Now we've got the TCG mangas, which is exactly as it sounds. Weirdly, this one's based on the games of the TCG rather than the TCG itself, even featuring characters from the game, like Mark and Ronald. It's only a one-shot, so nothing too special to mention. Created by Kagamaru Himeno, this manga follows the story of different Pokemon cards, and gives lore reasons on why the card is the way it is, or what it's about. It's actually really awesome, since we get lores for cards like Dark Charmeleon. Its trainer Hitoshi actually dreamed of joining Team Rocket, along with his Charmander, but the two always failed to do bad deeds. And one day, Charmander evolved to save his trainer, becoming what we know as Dark Charmeleon, and eventually, we see the two grown up, looking all cool with his Charizard. We even get to see the lore in the young Giovanni and his Persian. Even if these stories aren't canon, they're still a great read if you can find the chapters. Before there was Pokemon Path to a Peak, there was this manga. We follow the story of Kenta Minami, as he tries to become a champion at the Pokemon TCG. This manga also takes place in the real world, going from district level all the way to the world. And for our last entry of the TCG mangas, we have a multi-entry, like Pokemon Adventures. The Let's Play series started with X and Y, and goes all the way to the current day with Scarlet and Violet. I'm kind of glossing over how respectable this series is, as it's been running for 10 years now, even having unique characters all for the sake of promoting the card game, which is of course the main premise of each chapter, usually having a new set or mechanic be introduced. Now it's time to talk about the original story mangas. These are all the mangas that are Pokemon mangas, but not directly based on any game, anime, or spin-off. They're usually the more unique mangas, and some of them only use Pokemon as the casing. To start us off, we have a shoujo manga. The story follows a girl, Hazel, who's trying to win the affection of her crush, Almond, a Pokemon trainer. So she tries to get a love potion from a scientist who agrees to help her, if she can catch Pokemon for his research. Everything else is your typical shoujo love story stuff, just with a Pokemon flavoring. And you can tell it's really early Pokemon, as Hazel's never seen a Pokemon before, and trainers in general are rare. This got an official translation from both companies, but finding it now isn't the easiest thing. The sequel to Magical Pokemon Journey, but now in Hoenn. Although, when I say sequel, I mean that loosely, since the story follows Hazel's Pikachu and Clefairy, but not the girl herself. Instead, the main character is a Torchic, and her trainer, Haruka. But not as in May, instead a different character entirely. In this manga, we see things mainly from the Pokemon's perspective, as they talk to each other and to humans. But Pikachu still speaks like a regular Pikachu for some reason. To me, the whole thing's pretty weird, but I'm obviously not the target demographic, so swiftly moving on. We once again go back to my glorious shonen manga, with Pokemon Yeah I Got Pokemon. Thanks to Bulbapedia, we have a summary of the story. Main character Shu can speak to his partner Pokemon Pikachu through the use of a headset as the two go on a quest to catch every single Pokemon. It's 5 volumes long, being split between both Kanto and Johto. And spoiler alert, Shu does not catch them all, but he does have a pretty respectable own list, even managing to get in Lugia and Celebi for a while. Now jumping all the way to Gen 4, we have a manga based on the competitive Pokemon battling scene. Yeah, I was surprised too. Aim to be Battle King follows Yu Shirogane, a kid who wants to be the Battle King of Pokemon Platinum on the Nintendo DS. So in this manga, Pokemon aren't real outside of the games, but that doesn't make it any less cool. The action is on point, and the character designs on point as well. The art, you guessed it, on point. Even the competitive tactics are on point. I think anyway, I can't read Japanese. But seriously though, it's not Wolf Glick levels, but you can see that these guys are really trying to utilize the Pokemon's abilities and moves in the same way that you would do in the games, and I respect it just for that. It's also made by the same guy who made Joe's Big Adventure. Next up, we have the Phantom Thief manga. We follow Hiyori, a young boy who works as a gentleman thief, like Robin Hood, stealing stolen items and returning them back to their owners. And he does all of this under the alias Pokemon 7. It's 24 chapters and has a fun cast of characters, like Nazuna, Hiyori's day job co-worker, who has a crush on his alter ego, Rocco, his rival, and even his trusty team of Pokemon, such as Lucario and Gallade. Team Galactic also make an appearance, and there's a plot twist that's pretty cool too. If you're a fan of Kaito stories, you'll enjoy this. The Curses of Sequels. I have no information on this other than it follows 2 new Phantom Thieves, V and K, and they're trained by Rocco. This manga aside, the creator, Miho Asada, is currently working on the Inazuma 11 Goenji manga, so if you're a fan of that series, you have to thank her for some of its best stuff. Another manga by Asada. This time we have Tri Adventure, and no, this isn't Digimon. This series is kind of like Mystery Dungeon, but with humans going out to complete missions alongside their Pokemon. We follow Battler Katsuya, Collector Soro, and Survivalist Toki as the 3 help out people and Pokemon alike. It's overall just a generally fun time. Well, finally time to talk about Rebirst. Much like the other heavy hitter mangas, I'm not going to be spending too much time on the story of this, since I'm going to be making a video on it very soon actually. But as for the premise of this manga, it takes place in a world where humans and Pokemon coexist, just like usual. But through the use of mysterious gemstones, humans are able to combine their power with Pokemon and achieve a burst, fusing the two temporarily. It's hella weird, hella crazy, but also hella cool. Main character Ryoga is partners with Zekrom, as he travels the world looking for Arcadus, alongside a colourful bunch of characters. Its artist, Mitsuhisa Tamura, is also one of my favourite manga artists, and he's also the one behind the Buddy Fight manga. Once again, Asada appears to give us another original manga. Battle Stories has a simple premise. Its main character, Wakaba, is tasked to write a book on Pokemon, so she travels around the world interviewing trainers. Dragon-type Pokemon, the manga. This manga follows Akira, who wants to enter a tournament specifically for Dragon types. But with his partner Pokemon being a Charizard, a fire-flying type, what can he do? Well, with the XY in the title, I think the idea is pretty obvious. More importantly though, this Dragon-type tournament is actually a real thing in Japan. It was made for elementary school students to compete through the games or TCG, and if you won, you got a ticket to Worlds, an exclusive 3DS, and of course a trophy. At least this is how it was in 2014. As it turns out, this is still a yearly thing all the way up to 2024, and if they do it online, anyone has a chance to compete, so yeah, even people from worldwide. The prequel to the Cafe Remix manga. The official description reads, a dreamy Pokemon manga picture book has been created. Pikachu and Eevee's heartwarming days are depicted in gentle pastel colors. And that's all you're gonna get. We finally reached a newer manga, and this one was created as part of the Project Snorlax campaign. It follows Kumara, as she prepares food for her Snorlax. The first chapters are on Twitter, but they're in Japanese. Something else I want to note is that its creator, Takuku Obara, has some really crazy impressive art. He even has his own manga called Drifting Dragons, which has its own anime adaptation, so props to him. Our final original manga, and it's another recent one. This one was pretty big on Twitter, where its chapters were posted, once again in Japanese only. The story follows Riku and his Eevee, as he tries to decide what he should evolve his Eevee into. The cool part is though, the readers are the ones who actually got to pick the canon ending, through the use of retweets. 3 chapters were posted, one with Flareon, one with Leafeon, and one with Umbreon, so you can state your guess who it's gonna be. I'm gonna reveal the answer in 3, 2, 1. If you picked Umbreon, you were wrong, as the right answer was Leafeon, and out of those 3, it's definitely the best. Feel free to fight with me in the comments. Also, just like the other manga, its art is amazing. Now we've got a group of random manga and some 4-koma manga that don't necessarily have anything special to them, so I'm just gonna group them together. The Pokemon Quiz Puzzle Land series, which contains Pikachu is a famous detective, Pikachu's Challenge, Leave It to Pikachu, Pikachu's Exploration Team, and Pikachu's Treasure Hunt. Pokemon Stories with Pikachu. This one is special to me since it's by Emiko Yoshino, who's the artist behind the Quiz Encyclopedia series, and it's where I got the artwork for my current profile picture and banner. Pokemon English Master. Satoshi Shaijiri, the man who created Pokemon. And then we have a bunch of 4-komas. So rather than reading Pokemon 4-koma every time, I'm just gonna say their subtext. DX, Theater, Fun Encyclopedia, Picture Book, Encyclopedia, Encyclopedia Gold and Silver, Encyclopedia, Encyclopedia Gag Stars, Encyclopedia Diamond and Pearl, Encyclopedia Special, School, Gag Theater, Diamond and Pearl 4-koma Theater, Comic Compilation, Diamond and Pearl Comic Compilation, Platinum Comic Compilation, Heart Gold and Soul Silver Laughter Comic Compilation, Pocket Comics Black and White, Legendary Pokemon X and Y, and Sun and Moon. The Pocket Comics were actually translated by Viz, and I used to own the black and white one when I was younger. Pokemon Pun Club Gorgeous, Pokemon All Characters 2-koma, Slowpoke 4-koma manga. Get fired up, Dragon type. Is it really scary? Know the Pokemon. Pokemon Ruby Sapphire, 2-koma manga complete collection. Pokemon 1P comic theater. Pokemon 4-koma Plaza. This is still going by the way, and has been going since 2014. Pokemon Coliseum 4-koma special. Pokemon Sun Moon, Z-Move, Full Power, 4-koma illustrated book. Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Super Ultra, 4-koma theater. And lastly, My Besties comic. Now if you think that was bad, we have a list of lost manga. These are ones where I had no information on them at all, so I'm just gonna rapid fire them as well. Pokemon Gold and Silver, Pokemon Snap, Complete Strategy manga, Pokemon Stadium GNS. Pokemon Coliseum capture comic, Pokemon Coliseum, Pokemon XD special manga, Pokemon XD Whirlwind of Darkness, Dark Lugia walkthrough manga, Pokemon Dash, Pokemon Ranger, The Road to Capture Master, Pokemon Ranger Vatanage, Mission Complete, Pokemon Ranger Hero of Oblivia, Pokemon Battle Revolution, Pikachu vs Hitmonchan, Pikachu's Hide and Seek, Pokemon Miracle World, Pokemon Card Game Battle Comic, Exciting Victory, Pokemon Card Game. And to finally bring this video to its end, we have the anime manga. This will include any manga that's based on the anime in some way. This technically counts, so here we are. The film comic takes screenshots from the anime episodes and compiles them into a comic format. They did this for OS and a ton of the movies, with them even being translated into other languages. Back when episodes weren't always easily accessible, I could see this coming in handy. Now this is a manga you may have heard of. The Electric Tale of Pikachu is another manga I'd consider a heavy hitter by taking elements of the anime and making its own thing of them. The main cast all make an appearance, but not as you know them. It's also been translated officially, which includes a lot of censorship, as this manga was unnecessarily risque. Once again, I'll probably make a video on it down the line. Where Electric Tale of Pikachu did its own thing, Ash and Pikachu opted to follow the anime plotlines more directly, with some chapters having to mash episodes together. It covers Ash's Johto and Hoenn adventures and has been fully translated into English. Another artistic masterpiece by Miho Asada. Sadly, nothing's really known about it, other than one of its chapters is based on the Pokemon Ranger episode in AG. An adaptation of the Diamond and Pearl series, but with some stark differences. We follow Ash and Dawn, but without Brock. And he's not the only missing character, as Zoe, Paul, and Team Rocket are nowhere to be seen. Dawn's also more of a regular trainer than a coordinator. Because of these changes, the series comes up with its own original stories rather than taking anime episodes. And despite cutting out the others, it's still a pretty fun time with great art. As the name suggests, this is a manga adaptation of the Mewtwo Returns special. However, it wasn't released when the special was made. Instead, it was made to hype up the Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution movie. You know, the bad CGI one. Made by the same creator as Mewtwo Returns, Majito Gomi, Pokemon Journeys is also a self-explained manga, adapting the anime with the same name. It's 4 volumes long and adapts the start of the series all the way up to the 80th episode. Not everything in these episodes gets included though, so if you want a quick summary of the start of Journeys, then this manga can work as an alternative. If I were to explain this in one sentence, it would be Pokemon Journeys with a self-insert. Seriously though, it's a 2-chapter manga based loosely on Journeys, with Ash, Go, Chloe, and everyone's favorite, Mika. A girl who's trying to decide whether or not she wants to be a Pokemon trainer. Everything's done in a 4-coma style, and as you can tell by the art, it's targeted for younger girls, even running in Chow magazine. It's been translated on Manga Dex, so if you want to give it a read, feel free to. A 4-chapter long manga covering pieces of Pokemon Horizons. Back when the anime was still new, people were looking at this manga to find out what kind of plots we'd expect, but now it's just a piece of media no one cares about. Another Horizons manga, this time running in Chow rather than Korokoro, though it's pretty much the same thing and has the same backstory as the other. Once again, another Horizons manga that summarizes the show, but this time they make it to episode 12. Pokemon Horizons, Chow, you get the gist. It is what I would say, but this manga actually does something different, coming up with original stories based on Liko interacting with the Rising Voltacular's members, as well as their Pokemon. If you can read Portuguese, then feel free to check it out. A 4-coma manga that focuses around gags on Horizons. It low-key might be the newest manga in this video, since it came out in April's Korokoro, which is actually in March, but yeah. Now we're gonna quickly speedrun through all the movie manga. These mangas usually have a ton of differences from the movie in order to fit in their shorter limit, but we don't have the time to go through them. Mewtwo Strikes Back as a manga. It's set in the same continuity as Electric Tale of Pikachu. All 4 of these are by Toshio Tanigami, and they're all manga adaptations of the movies with the same name. The Jirachi movie manga, but by Suiga Nouchi, the same guy who made the Colosseum mangas. Destiny Deoxys manga, but by Takashi Teshirogi, the same guy behind the Ash and Pikachu manga. By Shigekatsu Ihara, the creator of the Diamond and Pearl adventure manga. A shorter manga on the Lucario movie, this time by Emiko Yoshino. Same thing as before, but this time by Miho Asada. The Manaphy movie by Makoto Mizubuchi, creator of a bunch of manga in this video. Manaphy movie again, but shorter, and by Yoshikazu Himeno. Darkrai movie by Ryotaka Misaki. Giratina movie by Makoto Hijioka. Arceus movie by Makoto Mizubuchi. All 4 of these mangas are by Momoto Inoue. Diancie movie by Kenji Kitamura. Cooper movie by Gin Kamimura. Volcanion movie and the I Choose You movie, both by Kemon Kawamoto, the guy who made the Let's Go one-shot and the Mesostar manga. By the same guy who did the Darkrai movie, Ryo Takamasaki. Once again by Kemon Kawamoto. Mewtwo movie remake by Machito Gomi. And lastly, the Zarade movie by Teruaki Mizuno. Now, technically, this doesn't count since it's not an official manga, and if we were including fan-made mangas, this video would be even longer than it already is. But at the same time, I can't make this video and not include this manga. Festival of Champions is a doujinshi created by Seijun Tombo and covers the adventures of Red and a ton of other trainers from all across the Pokemon world, as their individual journeys bring them all together at the Pokemon League. The Pokemon world in this manga brings in more realistic subjects, such as the mistreatment of Pokemon and their genuine connection with humans, but without becoming edgy for the sake of being edgy. I've already made videos on this manga in the past, and I'll definitely continue to do so, but I just wanted to gas it up for anyone who hasn't read it already. It's literally a fan-made manga that's free to read. What are you waiting for? But with that, that's every single Pokemon manga explained, even if some were literally just me reading their title. If I've missed any, then you're gonna have to forgive me. I had to do a ton of digging to find the things in this video, even using the Wayback Machine to access now lost websites. And of course, I've got to give credit to Bulbapedia and Dogasu's Backpack. Both had a ton of information that made this video possible. Let me know how many mangas you knew on this list, and which one was your favorite. If you want me to make full videos on some of these mangas, let me know that in the comments as well. With all that said and done, I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care.